9 spine-chilling true stories from the forbidden depths of Appalachia's haunted woods exposed. Twilight draped itself around the Stewart family's new home like an ominous shroud. Carl, Ellen, and their young son Sam, fresh from the chaos of city life, arrived at Hollow Creek seeking peace, unaware that the shadows whispered secrets long veiled in darkness. The old clapboard house creaked under the weight of its own history, nestled at the trembling edge of dense woods that loomed like a dark sentry, waiting. Ellen stirred dinner, her hands trembled as she mixed the ingredients. It wasn't the cooking that made her uneasy. An unsettling hum clung to the air, drifting from the dark woods, prickling the nape of her neck. Just the sounds of nature, Carl reassured her, a bemused smile on his lips. But Ellen felt those sounds were more than mere crackles and whispers, they were warning bells, echoing tales of danger. As night embraced the town, the Stewarts' first evening settled into a reminiscence of long-forgotten folklore. A flicker of doubt overshadowed Ellen's excitement, a fear that she couldn't dismiss. Days slipped past, filled with wilting veggies in their fledgling garden, livestock snorting and bolting at shadows, and those eerie tracks in the dirt unmarked, cloaked by the forest like a specter curling into the darkness. Subtle unease turned into rising suspicion. Their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, strained against the chatter of her own mind when she spoke, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. "That forest, it ain't just trees, dear. There's a spirit watching, waiting. It's angry." To Carl, such tales were nothing but quaint superstitions, relics of an age that had no place here. He rolled his eyes, brushed off her words, but Ellen couldn't shake the chilling notion that something was wrong. Before they knew it, panic struck like a thunderclap when Sam vanished from sight. "I just went to get firewood," he had said, yet his words faded into a void filled with dread. The woods swallowed him whole, and the darkness thickened into palpable fear. The hunt unleashed a shared terror in Hollow Creek. Townspeople poured outside, faces pale, their hands trembling as they gathered to search. The more they looked, the more unsettling memories resurfaced, whispers of lost children, each story echoing with despair. Ellen felt fists of icy dread clenching her heart, while Carl clung to rationale, pushing into the forest with growing desperation. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With night closing in, the forest breathed like a living thing. Each rustle and crack seemed to taunt them. Shadows flitted through the trees, hints of movement just out of sight. A monstrous presence stirred, intent on consuming what it felt was rightfully its own. The panic inside Carl and Ellen twisted into an unbearable tightness as they frantically called out for Sam, voices cracking under the weight of mounting dread. "What if Sam?" Ellen gasped, her voice thick with tears. Carl squeezed her hand, but a trembling growl erupted from the forest, sending them sprawling backwards. They knew they had to face some dark truth about the town, the kind that could sink their intentions into despair. As the night settled deeper, the guardian spirit stirred. Would it snatch their boy away for revenge, or had their family stepped into a trap spun by a history they never wanted to confront? The boundaries blurred as whispers of betrayal mingled with the howl of the wind. Was the forest a sentinel or a predator? It was almost too late as the Stewarts clung to fraying hope, falling deeper into the unknown, a truth veiled in whispers, waiting to unveil itself in the grip of darkness. Would they find Sam before the shadows took him forever? Or had the woods already forged a pact with the very nightmares that haunted their new beginning? The darkness enveloped them, swallowing the meager light from their fading flashlights. Each beam trembled in the oppressive silence, revealing nothing but the twisted shapes of trees that seemed to leer at them. Carl clenched his fists, adrenaline surging through him as he shouted for Sam again. The echoes of his voice bounced back menacingly, taunting him. Sam. Ellen's voice cracked, a mix of desperation and fear. The cold air pressed against her throat, tightening like a noose. Every shadow felt alive, watching. They pushed deeper into the woods, guided only by instinct and the growing anxiety in their hearts. "We should split up," Carl suggested, though doubt gnawed at him. "I'll take the left path and you just stay where you are, okay?" "No. I'm not leaving you." Ellen barked back, panic creeping into her tone as her eyes darted to the tree line. A sudden rustle broke the tension, a sharp movement that sent both of them whirling around. A figure emerged from the darkness, a man, thin and gaunt, skin stretched too tight over bone. His presence was congealed with shadows, the air around him twisted and dark. "You seek the boy?" His voice slithered through the air, gravelly and ancient. Who are you?" Carl took a step back, protective instinct igniting. "Nothing but a keeper of the lost," the man replied, his sunken eyes swirling with a madness that froze Ellen's blood. "This forest has many stories, but not all can be told." He stepped closer, and the stench of decay wafted toward them, a foul reminder of the forest's grip on the living. Ellen swallowed her dread. "Where is our son? We want him back." A flicker of amusement twinkled in the man's hollow gaze. "All that comes here belongs to the woods. The price of passage is steep, and the forest is always hungry." He gestured toward the impenetrable thicket. "He has met the spirit, and it is hungry for more than just lost boys. Let him go." Carl shouted, his voice resonating with anger. "You can't keep him. We'll find him ourselves." The man merely smiled, a grim and toothy grin, and vanished into the shadows. Ellen's heart raced, terror spiking as the weight of his words settled in. "Did you hear him? He said the spirit is hungry. What does that even mean?" "I don't know," Carl barked, his patience fraying, "but we need to keep moving." They plunged further into the heart of the forest, each step more reluctant than the last. The trees grew denser, branches snagging at their clothes, whispering dark secrets in the wind. With each passing moment, dread hung heavier in the air, punctuated by unsettling sounds, distant cries and the rustling of leaves that felt like voices beckoning them deeper into the void. "Sam!" Ellen screamed, her voice echoing, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. There was no answer, only silence, the kind that lingers with the weight of despair. As they moved ahead, the temperature plummeted. Frost began to coat the ground, and the shadows thickened. Ellen felt a cold hand grip her heart, a chill that came not from the outside, but from deep inside. The woods weren't just alive, they were awake, and they knew. Carl's flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows. "This can't be happening," he muttered, looking into the darkness around them. Then, as if summoned by their hopelessness, a silhouette appeared between the trees, a small figure, hunched over and trembling. Hope surged in Ellen's chest. "Sam!" But as they rushed forward, the figure dissolved into the night, swallowed by the forest, leaving only laughter, high-pitched and hollow, ringing in their ears. "Wait!" Carl yelled, reaching out, but it was too late. The laughter echoed, muffled by the trees, twisting into something horrific. The realization struck with icy clarity: what they witnessed was not a rescue, but a mirage, a cruel trick of the dark. "What if?" Ellen whispered, breath hitching. "What if the stories, those lost children, they never returned?" As the trees whispered secrets more menacing, something shifted behind them, a presence looming larger in the shadows. Ellen's voice trembled. He turned slowly. Terror blooming across his face. "We have to go. Now." But the path behind them had vanished, swallowed by the shifting shadows. They were not alone, the darkness loomed tighter, wrapping around them, an impending dread suffocating the light of hope. "Please, come back to me, Sam," Ellen cried, her heart racing with fear as the forest closed in, but the twisted trees stood silent, their branches a web, waiting to ensnare the next lost soul. What terrible secret lurked in the heart of these woods? What fate awaited them if they did not find their son? As the air thickened, Carl sensed the approaching danger, but could not grasp its source. "Get ready," he warned, heart hammering in his chest. And then, a haunting moan echoed through the trees, sending chills running down their spines. The darkness was only beginning to reveal its true nature. The shadows slinked closer, a thick veil that shrouded the world in fear. Ellen's heart raced, beating a frantic rhythm against her ribcage as the moan reverberated around them. It was as if the woods themselves were alive, pulsing with a malevolent energy, mourning or perhaps relishing their growing dread. "Where do we go?" she whispered to Carl, her voice cracking as she scanned the treetops towering above. The branches intertwined like skeletal fingers, threatening to crush them under their weight. "I don't know," he replied, swallowing hard, his gaze darting toward the encroaching darkness. "But we can't stand still. We have to find a way out." Steps felt heavy as they moved, the once familiar trails transforming into a labyrinth of despair. Each rustle, each snap of a twig resonated like a warning, underscoring their fragile grip on sanity. Suddenly, a flicker of light appeared ahead, dancing among the trees like a will-o'-the-wisp, an illusion or a beacon. Carl hesitated, looking to Ellen, who grasped his arm tightly, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Should we follow it?" she asked, uncertainty laced in her voice. "Maybe, but it could be a trap," he murmured, conflicted. But the pull of hope, however faint, ignited a spark that urged him on. "We can't just stand here. If it's a way out, we have to try." Together, they moved cautiously towards the light, each step potentially inching closer to salvation or doom. The woods quieted, as if holding its breath, and the atmosphere thickened. Ellen felt the oppressive silence weigh heavy, a prelude to something unspeakable. As they approached the flickering light, it pulsated and elongated, transforming into a glowing figure. A girl, her features soft yet obscured, stood surrounded by an eerie halo. She looked familiar in a way that twisted Ellen's heart, a specter of innocence lost. "Help us find my brother," Ellen pleaded, her eyes filling with tears. "Please." The girl smiled, but it was unsettling, hollow as if stolen from a grave. "He's south so close. If you want to see him, you must stay. Be one with the shadows." Carl's heart sank. "What do you mean? Why should we trust you?" The girl giggled, and the sound turned sinister, echoing wildly through the trees. "You think you can escape? The trees will not let you go. You're already part of them." In a flash, she pointed to the forest, and the shadows morphed, faces forming in the bark, mouths opening in silent screams. Ellen's mind reeled, panic tightening its grip. The stories whispered since childhood echoed back, taunting her with warnings of the forest spirits that feasted on despair. Then, just as quickly, the girl vanished, leaving only the faint glow that gradually dimmed. "What just happened?" Carl gasped, panic etched on his face. They were our son's friends," Ellen stammered, realization crashing over her. "I can feel it. They didn't escape either." "None of them did." But the shadows seemed to lunge at them, hungry. Voices echoed from every direction, pleading, sobbing, their own fears weaving into the symphony of the damned. "Stay!" they cried, "join us." Carl gripped Ellen's wrist tight. "We need to run," he urged, the fight igniting in his eyes. "What if it leads us deeper?" she countered, her voice trembling. "We have no choice." They turned to flee, but the ground beneath them shifted, roots twisting and tangling around their feet, pulling them down. The forest was awakening, angry and vengeful, and they tasted its bitterness in the cold, damp air. "No!" Ellen screamed, struggling against the hold of the earth, her breath hitching as the forest howled in retaliation. Each second felt like an eternity, their fight against the encroaching shadows becoming a grim dance of desperation. As they stumbled forward, the night pulsed, shifting closer and closer, the path behind twisting away into impenetrable darkness. Then, a voice slithered through the chaos, low and beckoning. "Come home, Carl!" Ellen shouted, fear drenching her words. We need to get out now. But they were ensnared, fates entangled with the forest and its wicked whispers. All around. The darkness thickened, curling intimately, promising an end and perhaps, something worse. What choice would they make when faced with the lurking nightmares of the woods? The path ahead became darker, twisted with uncertainty, leading them toward an unthinkable confrontation. What awaited them in that relentless night? Would they find Sam or forever lose themselves to the forest's hunger? They pushed harder against the shifting soil, arms flailing as panic consumed them. Ellen's heart pounded like a war drum, every beat reminding her of the darkness closing in. We can't let it take us, she yelled, her breath hitching as she felt the roots tugging more forcefully. Suddenly, they broke free from the earth, pitching forward onto solid ground. Ellen gasped for air, adrenaline surging through her. What was that? She panted, her eyes darting around, frantically searching for signs of their pursuers. Carl pushed himself up, shaking off the dirt, eyes wild. I don't know, but we need to keep moving before whatever it is catches up. He grabbed her wrist, urgency gripping him. They ran, nearly stumbling over the twisted roots that still threatened to ensnare them. The shadows lingered behind, almost sentient, as if they had grown arms and legs, reaching out to claim them. Low whispers trailed in their wake, coiling around them like tendrils of smoke, muffled, but pleading. Stay with us. Ellen pressed her hands over her ears, but the voices seeped through, clawing at her sanity. Make it stop, she shouted, frustration bubbling into terror. We need to get out of here. A glimmer of hope caught her eye, another flicker, this time larger and brighter. Carl. Look. She pointed toward the faint glow breaking through the dense trees ahead. Maybe it's a way out. He nodded, fear still etched across his face. Let us check it out. But be careful. They darted toward the light, their steps quick and erratic. As they drew nearer, shapes formed inside the illumination, a crowd of figures in tattered clothing, their faces obscured by shadows. A chill washed over Ellen. Who are they? She breathed, her throat dry. Carl slowed, his instincts prickling. I don't like this. It feels wrong. The figures shifted closer, drawn into the light like moths to a flame, revealing gaunt faces twisted in despair. The air thickened with a rancid scent, a mix of rot and decay. Help us. Save us. Their voices were an eerie harmony, teetering on the edge of sorrow and rage. Run! Carl shouted, grabbing Ellen's arm again. But it was too late. They were surrounded. Don't be afraid. A voice boomed from the heart of the gathering. Join us. We were lost, just like you. Ellen's skin crawled as the figures stepped forward, flesh appearing more like shadow than flesh. A woman with hollow eyes extended a hand. We can show you the truth. Together in the darkness, we are family. Ellen's resistance wavered, a strange comfort beckoning her. She glanced at Carl, whose stricken face jolted her back to reality. No. We can't trust them. The figures pressed in, fingers stretching like gnarled branches reaching for lost children. Stay with us. Embrace the shadows. Come on. Carl pulled her towards the trees, desperation fueling their flight. But the forest moaned around them, branches whipping in a chaotic frenzy as if trying to seal off their escape. Breathless, they dove into the cover of the trees, heart pounding louder than the whispers that echoed around them. Just when they thought they had broken free, the ground beneath Ellen shifted again, more violent this time. A crack split open, jagged and dark. Jump! Carl yelled as the earth crumbled away, threatening to swallow them both. Ellen leapt, grasping Carl's hand just as the abyss opened wider. They landed heavily, but the ground below them held firm, a small island amidst chaos. The darkness swirled above, shadows writhing like serpents frustrated at their thwarted feast, but amidst the chaos, another sight caught Ellen's attention: a door, half buried in the brush, ominous and charred, standing alone in the darkness. What if we she began, but Carl's eyes flashed with dread. Ellen, no. We can't go in there. Her heart raced as the whispers of the lost grew louder, drowning out his warning. But if it leads to Sam just then, the shadows surged, the forest released a collective wail that echoed through the night. Join us. Join us. What if we never get our son back? She pleaded, feeling the pull of fear and desperation tightening around her. What if we lose ourselves? Carl's voice trembled as he looked back towards the encroaching darkness. They stood at a fork, the door a promise at one end and at the other, the sinister forest ready to engulf them. What lay beyond the charred door? Was there salvation or only more darkness waiting to engulf them whole? Ellen hesitated, the door looming like a malignant eye in the storm of shadows. Carl tugged at her arm, his grip tightening with urgency. We need to go, he urged, panic cracking through his voice. But she felt the door calling, a siren's song laced with desperation. Sam, she whispered, the name a prayer caught in her throat. The darkness pulsed around them, and for a moment, it seemed the air thickened, wrapping around her like an embrace. Ellen. Carl's voice shattered her reverie. Get away from it. The whispers crescendoed, rising to a tumultuous chorus of sorrow. Stay with us. They promised. You belong here. Fingers thin and ghastly reached from the shadows, teasing the edges of her soul, daring her to step forward. No more. She shouted, her resolve sparking like a flame against the oppressive shadow. We're not lost. Then, a sharp crack echoed through the forest, and the ground trembled ominously beneath them. Carl stumbled back, falling hard against the earth. She instinctively reached out to help him, but something grabbed her, an unseen force that yanked at her leg, dragging her toward the door. Ellen. Carl screamed, scrambling towards her. She felt a jolt of fear as she fought against the grip of the shadows. The whispers turned to wails, thrumming with a raw desperation that made her insides churn. Let go. She cried, thrashing wildly, using every ounce of strength to pull free. With a savage tug, she broke loose, falling into Carl's arms. They scrambled backward, putting distance between themselves and the door, gasping for breath as the shadows seemed to recoil momentarily, flickering like candlelight. What was that? Carl panted, looking around as if every tree might come alive. A trap. It's trying to take us, she gasped, glancing back at the door. It stood there, an unholy promise, its surface hot and blackened, as if warning them of what lay beyond. But the whispers persisted, echoing through the trees. You know the truth is inside. You have to know. It's lying. Carl shouted defiantly, his fear igniting into rage. We need to find another way. They turned, breathing heavily, the familiar forest now a menacing labyrinth. Their surroundings seemed to shift, branches twisting like fingers, pulling inward as if the trees themselves were alive and intent on keeping them lost. Look! Ellen spotted a narrow path leading deeper into the woods, its edges shrouded in shadows but its center imbued with a faint shimmering. We can go that way. Carl hesitated. But what if it's worse? What if the shadows follow us? They already are. Ellen snapped, urgency clouding her judgment. We don't have time to waste. With a heavy heart, Carl nodded, and they dashed down the path, the flickering shadows hot on their heels, whispering promises of despair and forever lost. Each footfall resonated with a haunting echo as they sprinted deeper, until suddenly, the path opened into a clearing thick with fog, the moonlight struggling to penetrate the gloom. In the center lay a stone altar ancient and covered in moss, its surface glimmering faintly in the darkness. What is this place? Carl asked, fear creeping into his voice. He shifted closer, but it repelled energy, pulsing like a heartbeat. The altar was a monument of both terror and intrigue, and it felt like it was breathing, alive with secrets. Do you think it's connected to the door? Ellen murmured, entranced. As she leaned in closer, she noticed strange carvings, symbols etched upon its surface. Heartbeats echoed through her mind, the shadows writhing at the edges of her vision, drawing nearer with each heartbeat. Suddenly, a loud rustle broke through the quiet, and Ellen turned sharply. From the forest emerged a figure, cloaked and shadowed, with a face obscured but eyes burning like coals. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure warned, voice gravelly and low. "The darkness calls to you. You can't understand what you're awakening." Panic surged, and Ellen grabbed Carl's arm. "We need to go now." But the figure spoke again, this time softer, almost pleading. "If you want your child, you must face the truth. You must choose." What choice lay before them? Would they run back into the shadows or confront the terrifying unknown ahead? Heart pounding, Ellen looked at Carl, his expression a mix of fear and determination. "What do we do?" The night air hummed with anticipation, the forest holding its breath. "Ellen, we can't stay here," Carl shouted, eyes darting to the looming figure. Its presence soaked the air with dread, and Ellen could almost feel the weight of its darkness pressing down on her shoulders. "Just listen," Ellen insisted, her heart racing. The figure held an unsettling stillness, the shadows around it swirling like a storm. "What truth? What do we have to face?" "Everything," the figure breathed, and with that, the fog thickened, wrapping around them tighter, suffocating. "You seek the child, but what you find here could destroy you both." "I don't care," Ellen shouted, her voice ringing with desperation. "If he is here, I have to know." She hurried forward, driven by hope and terror, but Carl yanked her back, fear painted across his face. "Ellen, wait. This is madness." But a part of her felt anchored to the altar, drawn to the patterns etched into ancient stone. They seemed to pulse with life, whispering snippets of a long-forgotten language in her mind. Would this reveal where Sam was? Could she void the paralyzing fear gnawing at her heart? The figure stepped closer, shadows cascading, obscuring it in swirling dark. "If you want him, follow the path of the lost," it said low, almost intimate. "Choose wisely, or all will be claimed." Ellen turned to Carl, their breaths mingling in the damp air. "We have to understand what this all means," she implored him. It might be our only option." The earth rumbled beneath them, and the night seemed to shudder in response. The altar's surface shimmered, glowing faintly like embers in a dying fire, and the faintest image of a child's face flickered across it, brief, a desperate gaze that mirrored Sam's. "Do you see it?" Ellen gasped, tears stinging her eyes. "His face. We can't turn back now." Carl hesitated, his jaw tight with anxiety. But finally, he nodded, though uncertainty clung to him like the mist. "Okay, but we stick together. No matter what." Underneath the weight of their decisions, they inched closer to the altar. As they approached, the shadows drew back slightly, as if sensing their inevitable choice. The figure raised a hand, its gesture both inviting and foreboding. "To find the lost, you must first lose yourselves." Ellen felt a cold shiver slice through her as the ground shifted beneath her feet, her vision starting to blur. What does that mean? As she reached out toward the glowing symbols, the darkness thickened, swallowing the clearing in raw force. Echoes of cries reverberated all around them, layering over one another in a cacophony that made her stomach twist. Suddenly, the face of the altar transformed. Visages flickered, anguished, hollow eyes that stared out into nothingness filled her vision. She pulled back, panic twisting her insides. We need to go." But Carl, entranced, took a step forward. "Wait, I think I can hear them." He reached out a trembling hand, his fingers mere inches from the altar's surface. "Carl, no!" Ellen screamed, but before she could pull him back, a rush of heavy air swept over them, dragging Carl towards the altar. A violent yanking sensation mimicked the force that had nearly taken Ellen youth moments before. "Ellen!" he shouted, panic in his voice as he gripped the altar's edge. Help me. She lunged forward, but a barrier of shadows flared up around her, separating them. Hold on. She yelled, the horror settling in her chest as the whispers grew louder, drowning her words. Shadows reached towards Carl like greedy, clamoring hands. In that moment, a horrifying realization washed over her: the very forest was being drawn to them, hungry and relentless. Let him go. Ellen cried, her feet rooted to the ground. The figure swayed in the darkness, watching as the shadows tightened around Carl, their shape shifting with a life of their own. Then, it spoke in a voice that felt woven from nightmares. To save one, another must be sacrificed. Ellen's heart raced as time slowed, her choices screaming at her from the depths of despair. Would she let Carl go to save Sam? Or would she risk everything to try and save them both? The choice lay ahead, spiraling toward them like an inevitable storm. Ellen! Carl cried again, his grip slipping, the altar vibrating with energy. With breaths caught in her throat, she stared into the abyss of doubt and, as the shadows closed in, a realization sparked. She had to decide before it was too late. What would she choose? The forest held its breath, and Ellen felt the ground tremble as she stepped closer to the edge of destiny. Ellen's breath quickened as she faced Carl's terrified eyes. Shadows snaked around him, pulsing with a dark hunger, the altar thrumming like a living thing beneath their feet. Time felt suspended, the air thick as dread seeped in, chilling her skin. Carl! For a moment, Ellen hesitated, weighing the fragile hope against the gnawing fear. If she let him go, would it really save Sam? Or would she lose them both in the process? Ellen, his voice was a desperate whisper, trembling like a candle fighting against the wind. She could see the panic etched on his face, a mirror of her own turmoil. With trembling hands, Ellen clenched her fists. No! I won't let him vanish into this nightmare. Carl, just hold on. She shouted, forcing the words past the constricting fear in her throat. She stepped closer, her heart pounding wildly against her ribcage. As she reached for him, the shadows recoiled, as if stung. In that moment of clarity, she lunged forward, fingers brushing the cold stone at the altar's edge. It felt alive, vibrating under her touch, a gateway pulsing with otherworldly energy. Please, Ellen begged, her voice shaking. If it takes me too, if it's me they want, then take me. The figure loomed closer, its presence sharper now, its voice a chorus of echoes twisted into a single sound. One will pay for another. But the toll is steep. Are you prepared for the price? What do you mean? Ellen's voice softened, fear giving way to confusion. The shadows surrounding Carl writhed, pulling him deeper, tendrils creeping toward his face, curling around his wrists. Ellen! He gasped, fighting against the pull like a fish on a line, yet the grip tightened with each plea. No! Ellen screamed, shoving against the tide of darkness that separated them. The whispers grew louder, filling her ears with wails of countless souls lost to the void. All around, roaming voices shrilled in an uncontrollable surf, clawing at her senses. Then she felt an electric surge beneath her hand, powerful and warm, a stark contrast to the cold dread swirling in the air. The altar's symbols glowed fiercely at her touch, and in a moment of instinct, she pressed her palm harder against the stone. A blinding flash lit the clearing, illuminating the figure. Its eyes shimmered, endless voids reflecting fragments of her past, echoes of laughter, the soft crib lullabies to her son. Sam! The shift cracked through her heart like a crisis. Carl! She could feel the shadows straining, sensing her resolve tightening around her. Breathing deep, she focused on Sam's laughter, on his soft embrace. I want to let you take him. With a primal shout, Ellen yanked her hand back and thrust herself towards Carl, feeling the weight of the forest pressing on her, pushing against her, testing her conviction. Suddenly, the altar roared alive, the ground shuddering violently as she braced for the fallout. The glowing symbols burst forth with radiant energy blinding, radiant tendrils stretching like mad vines into the darkness encroaching at their edges. "Ellen, what are you doing?" Panic twisted Carl's voice as he caught a glimpse of her determined gaze. "I'm bringing you back. Just hold on." The shadows screeched in outrage as light clashed against dark. They withdrew, sucking back into the altar with what could only be described as a violent howl, while the earth cracked beneath them, fissures spreading like veins through the ground, but the struggle wasn't over. The figure morphed, reshaping itself into something far more terrifying, the last vestige of hope slipping as it bore down on Ellen, its intentions obscured by darkness. "Join us, Ellen. Choose your fate." A final crack of thunder rippled through the forest as she felt the otherworldly presence trying to breach her mind. Her heart raced, and suddenly the ethereal glow coalesced into paths that twisted and turned, options screaming at her. With one last surge of defiance, she shouted, "I choose my family." As the shadows ripped away, Carl's scream mingled with the howls around them. The altar's glow flared, and in that blinding light, everything shifted once more. What would emerge from the darkness? And what price would she pay for her choice? Ellen closed her eyes against the shadows, preparing to face whatever lay on the other side of her desperate decision. The light enveloped them, a blinding haze that felt both reassuring and horrifying. Ellen couldn't tell if it was burning her or saving her, but she gritted her teeth and pushed forward, fueled by a primal instinct to reach Carl. The shadows were retreating, shrinking back with tortured howls that vibrated through the air. But even as the darkness receded, tension hung heavy. The figure was lost in that brilliant glow until it screamed. An unnatural, piercing wail erupted, echoing off the trees and slicing into her ears. It resonated in her mind, stabbing at her resolve. "Ellen." The voice was raw, desperate. It belonged to Carl, pulling her back into reality, into their shared terror. "Don't be a fool. You don't know what you're doing." Her hand trembled as she struggled to keep moving toward him. The light flickered, casting ominous shadows against the bark of gnarled trees, almost mocking in their lifelike shapes. They shifted and danced with malicious intent, creeping ever closer as the altar's glow began to wane. Ellen felt the cold seep back in, wrapping around her limbs like icy fingers. The sensation clung to her skin, whispering doubts in her ear. What if she was just a pawn in this twisted game? What if the figure had spun its own web of lies? "Just let go, Carl. Let me save you." The words felt weak, even to her own ears. "No!" he shouted back, his voice laced with panic. "You have to fight it. This isn't just about me." As she paused, caught in the gravity of Carl's plea, the shadows surged forward again, grasping at her ankles, trying to drag her back. A choking panic gripped Ellen's heart. But then she felt it. The warmth. A small spark igniting deep within her, a connection to Sam. Sam, who held her heart. Sam, who was out there somewhere, lost and waiting. Ellen concentrated on that bond, pulling it to the surface. The shadows shrieked, as if her thoughts were poison to them. She felt the altar thrum beneath her foot, urging her on. "I'm not letting you take anyone else." She forced her way through the gathering darkness, every step igniting that inner fire. The blinding light burst forth once more, making her heart race as she reached Carl. But the figure, morphed and furious, emerged through the haze, now towering and grotesque, pulsating with darkness. Its tendrils reached, razor-sharp and hungry, poised to strike. "Your choice will haunt you, Ellen," it intoned, the voice slithering through the air like oil. "You think you can resist? This darkness is in you." It lunged at her, arms sprawling as if to engulf her whole. Ellen felt the air thicken with despair, a stifling weight that threatened to crush her will. "Fight it. Fight." Carl's voice snapped her back to focus. With a fierce determination, she pushed against the shadows with everything she had. The altar erupted again, sending a shockwave through the forest. A scream erupted from the figure as it was momentarily thrown back. But it wasn't enough. It gathered itself with terrifying speed, eyes blazing, fury transforming into raw hunger. Choose, Ellen. Choose now. With each heartbeat, the ground shook. She had to decide. One last choice hung in the air, pulsing like the altar beneath her. Suddenly, there was a rustling behind her. Ellen's heart sank as she spun around. There stood a figure, painfully familiar, shrouded in the remnants of twilight. Sam. Mom? He called, trembling with confusion and fear, reaching for her. Help me! Her breath caught as a chill coursed through her. She had to save them both, but at what cost? Sam! The cry escaped her lips, desperate, but the shadows laughed, swirling violently around her feet. In that crushing moment, Ellen's resolve crumbled. It was always going to come to this. She had to make a choice: her family, or her freedom. But the darkness loomed closer, ready to pounce. The prices had never been clearer, yet everything felt irrevocably tangled. What sacrifices waited in the depths of this fate? What would she truly lose by unleashing her will to save them both? A swirling dread cocooned around Ellen like a suffocating blanket. Sam's feeble figure hovered in her mind, a flickering flame against the storm of shadows that closed in around them. Mom, please! His voice cracked, a heart-wrenching plea that clawed at her insides. The pulsating shadows seemed to revel in her torment, swirling with relentless energy. They whispered cruelly, melting her resolve into molten panic. She felt their cold tendrils caressing her skin, chilling her to the bone while stoking the fire of urgency in her heart. I can't lose you too, she murmured, her throat tight as she glanced between the monstrous figure and her son. The grotesque entity laughed, sharp and mocking, a sound that echoed in the very marrow of her bones. Choose, little moth. The words slithered from its lips like venom. Light or darkness? Which child will you choose to save? What kind of monster are you? Ellen hissed, blinking back tears of rage mixed with despair. The brightness beneath her feet flickered as though it might extinguish like a dying star, and she felt her spirit tethered between the promise of salvation and the unforgiving grasp of despair. Save him, Ellen! Carl shouted, his voice breaking through the haze, shaking her from doubt. He's in danger. They're both in danger. She turned to Carl, his frantic expression sending jolts of realization through her. You're right. This isn't just about me. The altar beneath them throbbed, its pulse sinking with her heart, coaxing her to act. Yet her legs felt weighted, roots tightening around her ankles, but then a glimmer. The connection with Sam surged stronger, warmth enveloping her. The realization hit, fiercely illuminating her foggy thoughts. She could channel their love, their bond, against the oncoming darkness. Enough! Ellen bellowed, her voice steadying as the shadows recoiled, shrieking like a windstorm caught in a vortex. Her hands, trembling yet resolute, rose to embrace the light. I choose both. I will not let you claim anyone else. The altar exploded with blinding white-hot brilliance, casting the malignant entities into shadows of horror. The howls reverberated through the trees, a symphony of despair mixed with fury. But the grotesque figure, enraged, twisted and contorted, seemingly unbothered by the light. You cannot win this battle, Ellen. It roared, slashing at the air as if to carve through the radiance. This choice has made you weak. Her heart raced, blood pounding in her ears. Weak? She wasn't weak. She was a mother and she loved, in a heartbeat, a force erupted from her core: love, strength, defiance. It rippled through the air, igniting the darkness, illuminating the path to her son. Believe in us, Sam. She cried, forcing every ounce of power into the light surrounding her. The shadows writhed, losing coherence, breaking away in chaotic disarray. But just as she felt a moment of triumph, the creature's laughter twisted again, and, with a whip of its tendrils, it struck the altar. No! Not again! Carl exclaimed, eyes wide as cracks splintered the ground, spreading like veins through flesh. Panic surged. The altar trembled, light flickering ominously. Ellen stumbled, her legs weakening under the terror of it all. And then she saw it, an opening. A rift in the shadows, a chance. But beyond it lay a darkness unlike anything she had faced before. "Mom!" Sam cried, reaching out as another wave of shadows swallowed the flickering light. The creature, now momentarily distracted, loomed behind her, quivering with malevolence, preparing to strike. "Ellen!" Carl shouted once more, desperation coating his voice. The rift flashed with possibilities, dangers unspooling in every dimension. If she took that leap, would she save them, or condemn them all? It all circled back to loyalty, love, the essence of what made them family. What choice would she truly make as the darkness surrounded her with a chilling embrace? In that fractured moment, a single thought crystallized in her mind: was she too late to save them both? And with the shadows clawing at her back, she realized she might just have one final secret weapon in this battle. What lay beyond the rift? Ellen's heart thundered as she faced the swirling chaos, the shadows grabbing at her ankles like starving hands. Carl's voice called out from behind, a tight blend of fear and determination stitching through the air. "You have to choose, Ellen." The rift pulsed, its edges shimmering with light, revealing glimpses of familiar places: sunshine, laughter, the cozy warmth of home, and the last time she held Sam in her arms. "Sam!" she called, fighting against the rising tide of shadows. "I want to lose you." With every fiber of her being, Ellen focused on the bond that had always connected her to her son. Love was more powerful than the darkness. It was brighter than fear. With a steely resolve, she snatched at that flicker of light and brought it closer, channeling all her energy towards it. The shadows, momentarily distracted, pulled back. But the grotesque figure surged forward, unraveling the air around it in a suffocating embrace. "Join us," it hissed, voices of the lost echoing behind it, their cries wrapping around her heart with icy fingers. "You cannot win. Watch me!" Ellen shouted, her own voice resonating with unexpected power as she thrust her hands forward, illuminating the surrounding darkness. The light erupted, pushing against the creature's advance as if it were a barrier of pure hope. "Ellen! We need to get to Sam!" Carl screamed, his face twisted with fear as he struggled against the shadows trying to grip him from the sides. Ellen clasped her hands, summoning all the love she had for her family. "Sam, I'm coming!" she yelled, and in her heart, she felt Sam's spirit, rippling with hope. That connection fueled her, igniting her resolve. With a deep breath, she propelled herself toward the pulsing rift. The creature howled, thrashing angrily against the onslaught of light. "You have no idea what you're doing." But Ellen had never felt surer in her life. She had to believe it. It was now or never. Clenching her fists around the warmth radiating from the rift, she jumped forward, diving into the light. The world shifted in an explosion of color and sound, and for a moment, the shadow's grasp faltered, losing cohesion. The sensation was dizzying, like being spun through the universe and emerging somewhere entirely new. Then, silence. Ellen landed hard but was quickly enveloped in warmth, the familiar scent of home washing over her. She blinked against the brightness, heart racing. "Sam!" she cried, scanning her surroundings. There he was. Her precious boy stood before her, eyes wide with confusion and relief. As their gazes locked, everything around them hummed with stability and love. "Mom!" Sam rushed into her arms, his small body anchoring her in a tumult of emotion. "I was so scared." Ellen squeezed him tightly, relief flooding her senses. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I'm here. I found you." But as she held him, the atmosphere shifted again. The shadows hadn't disappeared, they shrieked and writhed in the distance behind her, the figure's rage echoing like distant thunder. "You think you can escape? The darkness will forever chase you." Breathless, she turned to Carl, who stumbled through the remnants of shadows, panting. You made it. His eyes shone with unfathomable pride and love, yet concern lurked in the depths. But we need to. A tremor rippled through the ground, a harbinger of the creature's next move. It was coming for them. Quick, we have to run. Carl urged, reaching for Ellen's hand, eyes darting backward to where the darkness approached. Together, they fled, the warmth of their unity propelling them forward. The world around them crackled with the remnants of an old fire, remnants of hope. They ran through a forest now strangely familiar yet laced with dangers, hearing the howls of departed souls fading into the distance. We can't let it take us again. Ellen gasped, holding Sam tightly. We have to stick together. With every step, they gained ground, the shadows losing their grip as light flickered through the trees. Ellen felt strength flood through her as they reached a clearing bathed in daylight. The warmth caressed her skin like a long-lost friend. They stopped at the edge of a sunlit meadow, lurking shadows drawing back into the darkness, as if confronted with an unyielding force. The grotesque figure howled in the distance, a sound full of rage and despair. You cannot hide. You're forever marked as mine. Ellen faced the shadows, trembling but resolute. You will not have my family. We are stronger than your darkness. Her voice rang with conviction, carrying the weight of her love. The shadows faltered, pulled back, as if confronted by her unyielding spirit. This isn't the end, the figure shrieked, turning into a wisp of darkness, fading into the cracks of light. You shall return to me. But Ellen glanced down at Sam, his small hand clasping hers, and then at Carl. They were safe. Their love had obliterated the darkness in this moment. Ellen felt tears of hope swell in her eyes as warmth enveloped them in a cocoon of purity. Let us go home, she whispered, her heart swelling, fear dissipating with every step. Together, they turned towards the light that led back into their own world, leaving behind the shadowed forest, the lost whispers, and the haunting spirits. With each stride, Ellen felt the life they would build angling into view, a place of love, laughter, and light, unmarred by the shadows of the past. Together, they ventured into their future, hand in hand, where warmth and love would forever prevail. The end. Now, this is your moment to keep the magic alive. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories waiting just for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps more amazing tales reach the world. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about how you would have faced the darkness. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.